Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. And this week, we're turning back the clock, but also jumping forward in that I have a repeat guest on, and we're catching up with her to find out what's new and what she's been doing and how things are going. My guest is Julie Ingmire. She was last on the podcast in December of 2017, and that was episode 202. I will link to it in the notes for this episode if you want to go back and listen again, or if it's fallen out of iTunes, which happens. And we talked about Julie selling her fan art on Etsy. And so we're going to catch up. Well, not we, but I am going to catch up with Julie. And I hope you enjoy our conversation. Julie, thank you so much for coming back again, and welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ijama. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Well, I'm so happy to have you back on because I really enjoyed our last conversation. I think it was very educational, and hopefully we'll get to touch on some of those things because, again, particularly with licensing, which is a big part of what your shop is all about. Well, not all about, but of what you do in your shop, because I know there's still a lot of confusion among Etsy sellers when it comes to copyright issues and licensed products that licensed material that they include in their products. So yes, glad to be talking with you again.
Yeah. I think, the last time we spoke, we were right in the midst of the holiday rush.
Yes. And speaking of the holiday rush, I know one of the things, and we'll get to some other stuff, but one of the things that you do is prep for Christmas in July.
Yeah.
And so is that how you're going to do it this year again?
Absolutely. So when I spoke with you the last time, I think it was early December, and I was working so hard. Oh. And I made it, I had just reached my 1,000th sale, I think. And I made it through that Christmas rush, and I continued at full speed ahead all the way until the next Christmas. Yeah. I didn't do anything really special to start preparing for the holiday season, which was a mistake. So that's why now I start in July.
Yeah. And can I just say congratulations? Because yes, I do remember you were around approaching or had just passed the 1,000 sales mark. And today, the day we're recording this, your sales are at over 5,600 sales. You're on your way to 6,000 sales already. And that's like an extra 4,000 in just about 2 years since we last spoke. So congratulations. And whatever you're doing, it's working. So I'm really glad that we're going to be talking about this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So what part of preparing for Christmas sales do you handle earlier in the year, and what parts do you save till closer to Christmas time?
Well, I started by stocking up on my supplies, all the materials for the items that I make. I started stocking up on shipping supplies. I started making, just building up extra stock. I started with Christmas items in July, and just all of the items that I sold, I just started building up as much inventory as I could. As we approach the holidays, I do work full time. So I did take a week off of work this past year in November. But one of the things that I did in about August was I planned all of my social media posts, all of my Instagram posts, by using a program called Hootsuite. I used to use an app called Buffer to plan my Instagram posts, but Hootsuite allows you, I actually paid for their service, an upgraded service. So in August, I planned out all of my Instagram posts through Christmas Day.
What?
Yeah, so I sat there in August and planned everything that was going to post all through November, all through December, multiple posts a day.
Approximately
Yeah.
how many posts would you say you had scheduled?
I scheduled at least two a day,
Okay.
and those were just like product photos that I had and
Mhm.
random photos. Like I actually recycle photos from time to time.
Okay.
And then throughout the season, as I was working, I did my best to throw in like an extra current picture, like this is what I'm working on today,
Mm.
or, photograph a stack of boxes headed out to the post office, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
But with all of these like stock photos, I guess you could call them, of my inventory that I had on hand, I in August, I planned all of those through December.
When you take the pictures for your Instagram posts, do you use Christmas decorations in them to make it look festive, or you don't have to do any of that?
No, I didn't do any of that.
Okay.
That's a good idea, though. Thanks for the tip.
You're welcome.
I like that.
So, so you do all your social media scheduling now, and then you said you also made products ahead of time. Do you track, or do you look at the trends from the years prior to figure out which ones are major sellers to make again, or do you just make everything, and does everything pretty much move?
I really focused on my best sellers,
Mhm.
but to be honest, I've dropped a lot of those items, and we can talk about that. Like after, when was it? So the first Christmas is when I spoke with you.
Mhm.
After the Christmas the following year, I
Mhm.
was exhausted
Hmm.
by the end of the holiday season. I was totally exhausted. In my store, I was many items were sold out, and I just didn't have the energy or the desire to like really pick up at full speed again.
Yeah.
So I just kind of coasted, and I decided that I set my intentions for the year, and after giving it some thought, I figured I really want to focus on my home and my family and my health. Wow, Etsy wasn't at the very top.
Hmm.
So, what I did was I've been kind of coasting since then. I've dropped a number of items from my shop that I don't offer anymore for whatever reason. But I spent time taking a look at my best selling items, making sure that my photos are really good. And I still have so much work to do today, as we speak.
Mhm.
But I bought a light box and started, retaking all of my photos,
Mhm.
and really was careful about crafting my listings, even though, people don't always read them. Um, and looking at my packaging, like, am I packaging these items, looking at my best selling items and making sure I was doing everything right with those items.
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of in that space where I'm still coasting. My first year or two on Etsy, I was always working really hard to introduce new items. Well, now for the past year or so, I've just been holding on with this number of bestsellers that I have. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
you right now you have about 60 products. About how many would you say you cut out roughly?
Oh, probably at least 40.
Wow. So that's is interesting to me because the if you read some of the documentation in the seller handbook, it says, sell more, list more, list more philosophy is what's preached to sellers. The more
Right.
products you have, the more chances you have to get found. And I can even, as I am saying that, I feel like I can hear myself having said that in the past as well. But
Mhm.
what you're doing actually flies in the face of that because you cut back and your sales are at least steady, if not improved.
Yeah, and the other thing about my shop is almost almost everything is ready to ship. I only have a handful of items that I make to order simply because I don't ever have enough time to build up a back stock of them. But most things like the badge clips, when I sit down, I'll make 50 of them. And, if I'm
Oh,
doing cufflinks, I'll sit down and I'll make 20 sets. Or earrings, I'll make 35 pairs, and
yeah.
then I list them. So everything is ready to ship. And people like that because, buyers want fast shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do have my processing time set to like up to a week just to take some pressure off of me because,
Yeah.
I do have a full-time job and it's pretty demanding.
Yes.
So,
Now, what type of inventory system do you use so that you know when you're running low on particular items that you make in batches ahead of time?
I really depend on keeping my numbers accurate on Etsy.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to cross-check and make sure, what I've got on hand matches what's listed as available in my shop. That's what
Okay.
I do.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right. So I like that what you're saying is you have a process where you take time to you do things in batches. You'll make a bunch of or a certain amount of one particular item and have that in stock and ready to go so that people can just buy them, but you still offer custom items. When
Yeah.
a customer wants a custom item, how much time do you give yourself? And have you found that most buyers are comfortable with what works well for your time and your schedule for the custom orders?
Yeah, they typically are, unless you're talking about the week right before Christmas. Um,
Yeah, that doesn't work for everybody.
yeah, and I always really try to push my orders out right away. Um, when we last spoke, I was getting up at 4 in the morning. I still do that. But when I come home in the evening from work, I spend a little less time in the evening on Etsy than I used to. And sometimes I even take an evening off. I probably do that at least once a week,
Hmm.
where I don't do anything. But I always really try to push my orders out like right away within a day or two. And if it's a custom order, I'll maybe it'll be 3 or
Okay.
4.
Okay.
Mhm.
So how what rather does a typical day look like for you balancing your full-time job and on Etsy? Let's just talk from start to finish. So you're up at 4.
Yeah.
Are you focusing on Etsy at 4, or are you getting ready for your day job at 4?
No, I'm focusing on Etsy. I usually am in packing orders. I'm
Okay.
usually packing orders in the morning before work. I use I schedule the post office to pick up the packages at my house, from my front door. I live in a really small town, and that works well for me. So I that's what I do in the morning is I pack orders. I tend to do my making in the evening and on weekends.
Typically,
Mhm.
how many hours now would you devote, or do you have a cutoff to Etsy outside? Yeah, on a regular basis per
I
day.
don't have No, I don't have a cutoff. To be honest, I'm spending a lot less time on my shop. During the week, like Monday through Friday, maybe 2 to 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
It depends on how much time is spent on the businessy side of it,
Mm-hmm.
responding to messages. So in the morning, I'm usually packing orders, and in the evening, when I'm kind of tired, is when I do the my making because it tends to be relaxing.
One thing I just wanted to explain for anyone who's listening, Julie said she leaves her packages and the post office picks them up. For our international sellers who might not really understand that, the US Postal Service has the option for anyone who is mailing anything, where instead of physically going to a post office or dropping off your packages in a mailbox or at the post office, you can request that the mail person come to your house, like literally to your front door or some designated place on your property, and pick up the packages. So you don't ever have to go to the post office or drop them off. When the mail person is doing their rounds, delivering mail, they'll pick up yours as well. Just wanted to explain that part.
Yeah, it's a beautiful service.
I love that service. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I used it, though, I think the mail person was a bit confused and they didn't come. And so I actually had to go to the post office. And this is, Metro Bay Area in California. So I actually had to go into the post office and say, no, I really meant for them to come to the door. But then after that, it was smooth sailing.
Well, I live in such a small town. All the mail carriers know me, all 2 of them.
Oh, nice. Now, you're also using some new tools that you weren't using before to run your business and help you be more efficient. Can we talk about the ones that you have added on and how you're using them and how they're helping you streamline what you do?
Sure. So I take advantage of some of the tools that Etsy offers us. I guess the first one I didn't mention to you in my email, but I am one of the people that uses Etsy Plus.
You are? Yay.
I am.
Good. I want to talk to you.
Yeah. So I decided to do that right away because I do use promoted listings. I've been using promoted listings for a couple of years, $1 a day, and with Etsy Plus you get credits, towards those promoted listings. That almost covers what you're paying for Etsy Plus, but it also allows you to put a button for restock requests. So if you run out of an item and somebody wants it, they can click to be notified when the item is restocked.
Oh,
that's one of the features that comes with Etsy Plus.
And I thought so does it notify you that someone is waiting, or it just will notify the interested buyer when you add more?
No, it notifies the seller as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I get a message under my activities, although I think they could do a better job of notifying me, maybe by sending a direct message or an email. Mm-hmm. The way you see it is if you look under your favorites and activities, that shows you, this person favorited this item, this person favorited your shop, this person requested a restock on this item.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I like that because, I do run out of things from time to time, and I have noticed that I will get an, indication that somebody's asking for a restock notice, and I will list that item, and within minutes I will hear the cha-ching.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a nice feature. So I do look at the types of things that Etsy offers. Mm-hmm. And one big thing was I started using QuickBooks for small business.
Yes.
And Etsy had a promotion when I first started using it. I think it was only $5 a month for
I remember that
period of time. And that was really helpful because after I had been on Etsy, my first full year on Etsy, I got hit hard with taxes. Because my revenue was really high.
The blessings.
Yeah. And I was not tracking my expenses as well as I could have been doing it. Yeah. So, another year came around and it was like, holy moly, I owe the IRS a lot because I hadn't been paying quarterly and I wasn't tracking my mileage, for example. So I use the QuickBooks. It's very easy to use, and that's really helpful because I'm doing a much, much better job of tracking my expenses, which is important comes tax time.
Does the version of QuickBooks that is integrated with Etsy also integrate with your bank accounts and?
Yes.
Good.
Yes. Yeah. So I found it to be very user friendly. I have it connected. There is one account that I use solely for my Etsy store
Mm-hmm.
for my business expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a credit card that earns me rewards with Sun Country Airlines.
Oh yeah.
That's my airline of choice. It just happens to fly all the places I tend to go.
Okay.
So I use a rewards. I use a
Nice.
rewards card. Um, for
And
all
then
of the expenses, which led me to pirate ship.
one second before you get to pirate
Yeah,
ship regarding
yeah.
QuickBooks. So it's the QuickBooks self-employed version, right? Through
Yes,
Etsy. Okay.
for small business.
For small business. Does it
Yeah.
also give you a picture of your profits and your losses?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make
Yes.
sure.
So you can tie it to your bank account or to a debit card or a credit, any kind of a credit card. Like I have my Amazon account attached to it because I use Amazon for a number of my supplies.
Mm,
And it just records all of the transactions, and you need to sort them. You need to mark them. Is this a business expense? Is this a personal expense?
mm.
Do you want to split it half and half?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does all that.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to clarify that because I think that does help. I started with that version as well. Although I didn't it was before Etsy had the integration
Hmm.
and I'm sorry, it wasn't that version. It was another one that was way more complicated and harder to figure out. So it sounds like this version that they've integrated with Etsy is a lot more user friendly than some other QuickBook versions out there.
Yeah, that may be true. I have found it to be quite simple to use, and I'm pleased with that.
Okay.
Hmm.
Nice. Okay. So then you said that led you to Pirate Ship.
Yeah, so with shipping, okay. So I used to use Etsy labels, and after a not so recent increase in postal rates,
Yeah.
I found that Pirate Ship offered cubic rates because I ship up most of my items priority
Okay.
just due to their size and weight and the need for insurance. I use priority mail, and Pirate Ship, their prices are quite a bit less than buying through the post office or through Etsy labels.
Well,
The first class rates I've found that they tend to be just about the same.
okay.
But the priority rates, they're a lot less expensive. And with the push that Etsy has made to have free shipping
Hmm.
or shipping included, but they call it free shipping,
Hmm.
I found that to be really helpful for me to use this source that's a little less expensive.
Now, I'm so curious how, and maybe you don't know the answer to this because you're not Pirate Ship, but how are they able to offer shipping prices that are lower than what USPS does?
Right? It's the cubic shipping rate, which is something that's typically only available to people that ship like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of packages on a very
Oh,
regular basis, but they're able to offer it to consumers. I know I was real wary of it at first. Like, can I do this?
yeah,
Is this okay? Does this count for me? Am I going to be in trouble?
yeah.
Um,
And the name doesn't help either.
I know. I know. It was recommended to me by another Etsy seller who had a really good experience with it, and
Nice.
I've been real happy with the change, and it's very easy to use because of the integration with Etsy. You can just
That
click the button and they just suck the information right on over and spit out your label.
Whoa. Okay, that was my next question was whether or not it's integrated with Etsy and or if you have to go to a separate like log into a separate platform and manually put in
Yeah.
the information.
No, you can connect your account, give them permissions, and they transfer the info over for you. It's
Okay.
really simple. I was hesitant to make the switch, like I said, I
Mhm.
was at first, but then I found that it was so easy. So,
So can
And by buying all of my shipping labels last Christmas, I mean, I earned a free ticket using that rewards credit card too.
airplane ticket?
Yes, a free one
What?
from all my points from buying all those shipping labels. If you buy your shipping labels on Etsy, it's deducted from your pay. But if you buy your
Yes.
shipping labels off Etsy, you can use your rewards card. And I like to
Okay.
buy plane tickets.
Oh, okay. So let me just talk this through so we know how it
Mhm.
works. So
Yeah.
your rewards credit card or debit card, your rewards card is attached to your pirate ship account.
Yes.
You get a sale on Etsy.
Hmm.
It's connected to your pirate ship account.
Hmm.
When the sale goes through, pirate ship, you've given them permission to pull over the buyer's information, name, address, etc. You go over to pirate ship and you click something and it gives you a mailing label for that particular customer and charges the amount to your rewards card that you have on file with them.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so all your money on Etsy stays there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, and on Pirate Ship, are you able to print out? I don't know what type of labels you use, but if you use like a label printer, are you able to format it to different printers, either a label
Yeah.
printer or a regular laser or inkjet?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Hmm. And I've been, over the past year, I've actually started investing more in my business. And
Mhm.
yeah, buying one of those label printers was a game changer. I
Yeah.
can't believe I was cutting my labels out for so long.
That's how I felt when I switched over too. I was like, why didn't anybody say anything about
I
this?
know, I know. I'm always learning. I'm
Yeah.
always learning something.
Yes. Now, regarding pirate ship, does one have to have a certain minimum volume of sales to benefit from using their service, or can sellers who sell lower quantities, maybe higher ticket, but still not high volume, use their service?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. Especially if you're sending items priority mail, I would recommend it.
Okay.
Mhm.
But not so much with first class because the difference is
Yeah,
not vast.
right. Like a year and a half ago, there was a price difference. First class was cheaper on pirate ship, but now it tends to be just about the same with
Okay.
the most recent rate increase.
Okay. And do they only offer, are the only services that they offer through Pirate Ship first class and priority? Do they do media mail or what else does USPS offer?
Express,
Express, yes. Any of that?
I know they do express. I'm not sure if they do media. I haven't tried that before.
Okay. Okay. Good to
Yeah.
know. I will look up Pirate Ship and put a link to them in the notes for this episode at convome.com so others can go and check them out as well. Sounds
Yeah.
really interesting. And so you mentioned earlier that you 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 have been doing paid advertising and with your Etsy Plus subscription, you get some what's it called? Not bonus,
Like some credits.
credits. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific paid advertising strategy that you use, or you just set your daily cap and let it run?
I only promote one or two items at a time. It's usually two of my best selling items, but they're also like the higher ticket items. So I like to see those sell. And $1 a day, and it's just been the same. I've been doing that for a couple years. Yeah.
Are you
Um,
able to track back the um the returns that you're getting, like the number of sales that are coming from your advertising efforts directly?
yeah, Etsy provides that information to you if it's at least if it's coming from their promoted listings. I
Okay.
haven't looked recently, but when somebody clicks on one of your promoted listings and buys that item, when you're looking at your sales on the dashboard, there's a little megaphone next to their name. That indicates that sale came from a click on a promoted listing.
Oh, okay.
So I can see it, but there is a way where you can go and look at your stats, and you can see exactly how much you have spent on advertising and how much it has brought you in sales. I just haven't checked that information recently.
Okay. Now, with QuickBooks, are you able to split out advertising costs as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
Yes.
Okay. Nice.
I have some other advertising. I found a really great opportunity because since I make fan art for my favorite band, there is an internet radio station that's like by fans, for fans, and they were selling like ad space. And for a really low price, I made a donation to this radio station. And by really low, I mean only a couple $100s. And I get one on-air mention a day for a year.
Really?
One a day for a year.
365 days?
Yes.
So that's less than a dollar a day.
Yes. And they made such an awesome, flashy sounding ad, it says jamongifts.com. Yeah. So I've definitely been putting been less afraid of business expenses.
Yeah.
And having more fun with my business because of that.
Now, are you able to tell which buyers come from hearing the radio ad?
No, I didn't set up anything to track it. So the only thing I could think was I could offer a special coupon code that they would mention on air. And then if somebody used that particular code, I would know it came from that mention.
Yeah.
I really couldn't figure out any other way to do that. But I very rarely throw coupon codes out there because I try to keep my prices really reasonable to begin with.
Yes.
So I'm not one to run sales. I don't do promotional giveaways really. And I don't drop a lot of coupons out there because I just try to keep my prices okay from the start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask you something about that. Did you give the radio any verbiage for the ad, or just your business name and then they ran with it and made something on their own?
I gave them my tagline or a tagline, jamongifts.com. And I always use my .com. I don't have a standalone website. So if you go to jamongifts.com, it redirects to my Etsy store. Okay. It's not a separate entity. So, but I always promote jamongifts.com.
Okay.
I say jamongifts.com. My best selling item is called the original Golgi stub frame. So the ad says jamongifts.com, maker of the original Golgi stub frame and other fan essentials.
Nice. Now, speaking of which, you mentioned that your URL, jamongifts.com, redirects to your Etsy store.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much attention or time you give to all what's going on around Etsy. So much is changing recently. Right. And every once in a while there's panic and pandemonium, and folks are, they're, I don't know if everybody leaves, but people talk about leaving and going elsewhere. What's your reaction or response when these changes come through? And most recently, at the time we're recording this conversation, the most recent change was in Etsy's offsite advertising, and having making it mandatory, if you will, for sellers who make over a certain amount annually. And when these things happen, what's your response? Knowing, just where you are right now with Etsy.
Well, first, I'm a very resilient person. I'm very resilient. I ride the waves. Just like with my full-time job, that changes happen all the time. It doesn't serve me well to get upset, to get frustrated, to complain all over the internet. What works for me is figure out, okay, what's going on here and what do I need to do to make this work for me? I just go with the flow, just like with this. So it is, I am one of those sellers that fall into the mandatory participation, and I am fine with that. That's like somebody saying, hey, we're going to promote your items for you. You don't have to pay us unless you get a sale. How about that? Well, that sounds great to me. That's why I like the platform. That's why I like Etsy. I've had my own standalone website, and it's a lot of work to drive traffic to your own site. I don't have time or the desire to make the time to do that. I spend very, very little time marketing my shop.
Yes.
Very little time marketing my shop. If Etsy wants to do that for me, even though I don't have any choice, if they want to do that for me, I'm fine with paying for that service.
Yeah.
Because they don't come up with these ideas just out of nowhere. They look at market research and so I'm okay with it. And I've had people say, I was not very popular with that opinion in some of the Facebook groups, saying like, I'm just going to suck it up and go with it because that works for me. Sometimes I feel like having an Etsy store, it's like renting space in a mall with like a really bossy homeowners association.
Yeah.
But if you do what they want to do, the results tend to be favorable.
Yeah.
So I do what they want me to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my position.
Yes. And I'm happy that you shared that, because one of the things I like to do on the podcast is have people on with different opinions and who see things, differently. And for you, that works. I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not in your position where it's forced on me because I don't meet the sales threshold.
Sure.
But I read through it and I actually did consider opting in just to see, because for me it's optional. So I can choose to see how it works for me and test it. And if it's not working, if it doesn't, then pull out because it's not working for me.
And you need to watch that, because from what I understand, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I understand, you will automatically be enrolled in it, Ijama. And so even though you're not required to, I think they're going to automatically enroll you, and you will have to opt out if you don't want it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I was doing a lot of reading, and that's the impression that I got.
Well, that's also good to know, because this is how I look at it. If they do automatically enroll me, yes, I don't like being forced into things, but if I see that I am starting to get sales and they're going to let you know which sales are a direct result of the advertising efforts that they put in. If my sales do go up as a result of this advertising that they're doing, then I would likely just keep that, because I'm there to sell. That's what I want to do. So if it works for me, I might just stick with it. And if it doesn't, first of all, I won't be paying anything anyway, because I won't be getting any sales. So there's nothing to charge me for. But yes, I guess I would have to, go that extra step of opting out. So, okay.
So I think I may slightly increase the price on a few of my items just to make up for that over time. But I'm not worried about paying, sales coming in from those ads. There's people out there saying, don't click on Etsy ads. Like I'm not worried about the cost associated if sales are coming in that way.
Yeah.
As long as you have your fee structure set up well enough to absorb some of those costs, you'll be fine.
Yes. And that's a good point you mentioned, because I hate to always bring it back to me, but I just want to mention an experience I had with the free shipping. For the longest time, I didn't offer free shipping. And it wasn't so much because I was rebelling against the system. I was just too lazy to sit down and figure it all out.
I understand. I do.
And so eventually I sat down, and eventually means like a couple of months ago, I said, okay, let me figure this out. And so I did. I did the $35 minimum, ships for free domestically. And initially nothing happened. Then I got a sale, but the buyer only bought one item, and so didn't meet the $35 threshold. And then I realized, oh my goodness, this person they've paid more than what I intended to charge for the product.
Oh, right.
Because, I had to put some padding for the shipping, but then the padding was in the price, and then the person paid shipping separately. Yeah. And I was just racked with guilt. So
I know.
I contacted the buyer. I'm like, I'm going to give you back your shipping. It's a whole long story, but you don't have to pay for shipping. I think that it was a lady. I think she was just so confused, probably questioning why she even bought the thing from me. But I was like, just take back your ship. Just take back the money. Don't worry. I will ship it to you. Anyway, so then I figured out that I had to, account for people who don't meet the minimum. But over the last month, what I have noticed, and I don't know if there's a direct correlation, I'm trying to tell myself that there is, because this didn't happen before that. I've been getting more sales where the buyers are buying multiple items. And in my head, I believe it's because they're trying to reach that minimum to get the free shipping. Because prior to that, most of my sales, the majority of my sales, were just one item. But now I see them buying multiples of items and buying items that match. Like if I have, two of something similar, they'll buy, 2 or 4. So I don't know. I
had that experience too.
Did you?
I did. So when I first started switching over, I did the free shipping with $35. I did that, and I noticed that a lot of people, instead of buying just a stub frame, they were buying a stub frame and adding a pin, or buying a stub frame and adding some earrings. I definitely noticed it. But then I didn't have my prices figured out right, and I wasn't always making the best money that I could be making because I didn't have things figured. So I just switched over to everything shipping included, or free shipping. I just switched every item is shipping included.
Yeah. Yeah. So to your point,
when I did the 35 and up, I saw that people were tacking on extra items. Okay. So I did things like this. I designed a couple greeting cards, like a birthday card, and a Father's Day card, and a Christmas card. I had already had that one. And like a new baby card that I just made a design and had them printed like postcards on Vistaprint, and then had that as an add-on. So here's this item, but I had variations with add a card. I did that too.
Nice. I like that. And see, to your point where you said you don't think that they make these decisions, just on a whim, that, there's some thought that goes into why they're doing what they're doing. And, I'll admit that sometimes I too think, why? Just why? But
yeah. I know.
It's just the whole mindset of, I just don't want to change. Just leave me alone.
I
but
know.
you have to believe that somebody is thinking something through, and there's a reason. And so, yes,
Right.
in this case, like you and I have experienced, we, have an idea why they did, certain things. At least with the shipping,
Hmm.
it kind of makes sense. Although I
Yeah.
know in the larger outside, Etsy world, it's, I'd probably be crucified for saying that.
Yep. But it's true.
Um,
So,
Julie, what would you say to that seller who is where you were 2 years ago? Well, maybe not exactly when we had the first conversation because you were in the throes of holiday sales and frantic. But 2 years ago, before having, all like, I feel like now you're talking like a mature seller because in 2 years you've grown, you've added on processes and streamlined things and done it in such a way that your business is still actively growing and is steady. You have, yes, a nice steady income from that. What would you
yeah.
say to someone who is still muddling through and trying to figure things out to help them maybe get closer to where you are?
Wow. Hmm. I really think, just like I said when we spoke a couple years ago, that the most important things, the most important factors for my success have been find your niche and know your market.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know, like when the changes come with Etsy, because I'm sure we'll see more down the
Mm-hmm.
road.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have some faith in them, like, and don't give up. Like, I understand, like, most people, I think, have slow starts. I don't think that's unusual. But don't give up, like, follow your passion. And I don't know if I have any really good advice. I just do what works for me, and I know everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but listen, when Etsy sends out those emails each week, and they talk about when they talk about customer service. So that was another one with them coming out with that order dissatisfaction rate policy.
Oh,
So
yes.
keep up with the Etsy news, but read from Etsy directly. It like one of the things, Ijama, that I love about this podcast so much is getting to hear these really inspiring stories from other sellers where things are going well. Well, it is so easy if you get on the internet to find a whole lot of nothing but complaining and questioning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's just a lot of like negative stuff out there. So I just really, I don't know, I wanted to say that. I just really like this podcast because it's inspiring. But I've
Thank you.
just been, I know that the customer service is really important and fast shipping. And that's why, what works for me is to have only items in my store that are ready to ship. But you just have to figure out what works for you. I
Yeah.
guess I don't have a lot of great advice.
No, that's wonderful advice because that's exactly true. Um, Sometimes, I mean, there's there's good stuff in the collective wisdom, but not everything works for everyone. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that we got to hear what's working for you because there's probably somebody else out there who is trying to do it someone else's way and hasn't
Mhm.
just realized that that doesn't work for me, and they need to realize do what works for you.
Yeah, because everyone is different,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's
So, and
business is different.
I'm always learning so much. And if you were to ask me, like, Julie, what is your hobby? How do you spend your free time? I don't usually the first thing I would say is I own a small business.
No.
So and then I would say I'm a maker.
Yeah.
So I do treat it like a business.
Yes.
And I'm always learning. But I have people that I go to for advice and guidance as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we all should. I don't know that anyone will ever know everything. And so that's
Right.
why I enjoy doing this because like from people like you who have figured out what works for them. Yes, what you're doing might not work for me, but some of what you're doing is helpful to me. Like now I know, okay, I can maybe give QuickBooks Self-Employed a second chance and free myself from my Excel spreadsheets.
Right. Yes.
And I wouldn't know that if I hadn't talked to you who's using it successfully, and you're able to tell me I can put my banking information in there, I can track my mileage in there, I can do all this, because the one I used was crazy. And so now I know, okay, I can go back and try this. And hopefully somebody else listening who is, struggling with spreadsheets or nothing can now go and give this particular tool a try. Yeah.
Yep.
And by the way, you don't want to not do anything. You need to pay taxes. They will come after you.
Right.
Julie, thank you so much for coming back. Congratulations on just what you're doing on Etsy and your success. Your just how you calmly just ride the storm and are still thriving on the platform is inspirational to me. And so I'm just happy to keep on watching you and just, enjoying seeing you grow and thrive on Etsy. So thank you for coming back and talking with me again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week. If you'd like to connect with me outside of the podcast, I am on Instagram at convo me podcast. I also put up live videos there, trying to do at least one a week now, and sometimes a couple. And so again, that's Instagram at convo me podcast.